Hello everyone, welcome back Jack.
Hello,
Good to see you. We're just waiting on a little left turn.
Yeah, we're just going to wait a little while till a left turn turns up. It's so much easier. Not a little one, it looks like... Oh, it looks like a huge one.
Isn't it? Do things in style in the Queensland Police.
Thank you. It is easier. Thanks everyone.
Hey Josh, very good. Is everyone here? I thought some people got delayed, but no, all good. AJ, you ready?
Go for it.
Okay, very good. Well, good morning everyone. Good morning Queensland. Thanks for tuning in. A lovely day here in Caboolture, and it's my birthday, so there you go, grey hair and wrinkles. So good day to do a press conference. Can I start off by thanking Queenslanders for getting out and about and getting vaccinated, for doing the right things with masks and getting tested. First dose, we're now at 90.49%. That's excellent. Excellent, Queenslanders. Well done. And second dose, we're 86.14%. So edging closer to that 90% double dose, which is an important milestone in our roadmap. We've also got, and this is really good news, 0 cases of COVID-19 in ICU. So that is fantastic news. And there was 1,539 new cases of COVID-19, 35,000 tests by Queensland Health yesterday. Now, as we would have seen, the Premier announced this morning, and she's been foreshadowing for the last couple of days, we are moving to rapid antigen tests as a valid test for interstate travellers from COVID-19 hotspots from the 1st of January. What that means is someone today who wants to come to Queensland, because it's within the 72 hours on the 1st of January, you can go and get a rapid antigen test, and that will be the valid test for you to come into Queensland from today. So no need to line up to get a PCR test. Go and get your rapid antigen test, have the border pass declaration completed, and you can come into Queensland from the 1st of January. Of course, talking about the milestones around 90% double dose, which we're getting very close to. Once we hit 90%, you don't need any test. But until we hit 90% double dose, the rapid antigen test is now a valid COVID-19 test for entry into Queensland from interstate hotspots. So I encourage those people coming to Queensland, consider your options, but certainly a rapid antigen test is a very good option for you. You'll avoid the queues for a PCR. Now, the other important information is, of course, we are continuing to encourage people to go out and get tested if you're feeling unwell. Make sure you get the masks when you're in places where you can't socially distance, and the other requirements around being at certain locations where it is mandatory for you to wear those masks. And please also keep up good hygiene. I'll now hand over to the Chief Health Officer to provide more information around the change today, as well as also the COVID cases. Then we'll hear from the Commissioner, take some questions, and then at the end we've got some really important messages to reinforce about road safety as we're heading into the New Year celebrations. So I encourage you all to stay tuned in until then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. So today in Queensland we have 1,589 new cases to report. That brings the total to 8,534 since the beginning of the pandemic, and there are 6,368 cases currently active. Despite this substantial number of cases we have active in Queensland, 6,368, we still have no cases in our intensive care units, which clearly indicates that the vaccines are working. But I would encourage anyone who is eligible to go and get their third dose if it's been 5 months since their second dose. It's critical that people go ahead and get their third dose. Now, cases have been statewide, including rural and remote areas. Overnight, a case was detected on Thursday Island. The person involved had done all the right things. They were fully vaccinated. They got tested and then isolated straight away when the test result came back, and that case is currently being managed by the Torres and Cape Hospital and Health Service. But it does remind us that it's critical that everyone in all regions of Queensland, no matter where you are, no matter how remote you might be, that you need to be vaccinated. This can strike us anywhere. At this stage, information is new on this particular patient, but at this stage it appears that he acquired the infection interstate. There were 35,002 tests conducted yesterday. Interestingly, this is actually 3,015 tests more than the day before, despite the fact that we removed the 5-day testing requirement for people returning from interstate. I think this suggests that people have come out over the Christmas period to get tested, and they may well be symptomatic. So that's a good thing. I think it indicates that we're probably able to focus our testing more on those likely to be infected. So it won't surprise me if in the next 24 hours our numbers do increase. Yesterday, when we did remove that mandate for the 5-day test, we had people walking the queues throughout the state to ensure that anyone who was waiting who was waiting to be tested did not require the test. We know in places such as Mackay, Townsville and Cairns there was a reduction in those queues there. In homes, we are managing 976 cases of COVID at the moment. I mentioned before there are no cases of COVID-19 in intensive care or ventilated. And I think this is one of the most critical numbers to monitor when we're getting some gauge of how severe this disease actually is in Queensland, that number of people in intensive care. The number of hospitalised cases is a little bit more complex, and it's difficult to tease apart those people that are in hospital for the management of COVID and those that are there for other reasons. That's why looking at that intensive care number is so particularly useful as a gauge of the severity of the disease. So we do have 93 people in hospital at the moment with COVID-19, but we know that the majority of them are not there because they're being treated for symptoms of COVID-19. We have reports of about 8 or so patients being treated for symptoms. It could be slightly more. As the numbers increase, as the number of patients we see in hospital increases, it gets harder to tease this number out, short of calling every single doctor in every hospital to work out why those patients are there. And we may well change the way we report this in the new year, just to simplify it. The thing that is most useful, I find, to give an indication of how severe this disease is to look at those numbers in intensive care. That really gives us some good idea. I can say that there are I can think of at least 2 older people in their 80s with medical conditions that are not in intensive care but are unwell. That significantly unwell. So this is not a completely benign disease, and so I don't want to give that message at all. And we know, given that we have this Omicron variant dominant in Queensland, that case numbers are going to rise very rapidly in the next few weeks. Interestingly, the Omicron variant is becoming more and more dominant in Queensland. It's probably more dominant in Queensland than any other state in the country. We're now pushing 80% of our cases are Omicron, which is probably good in the grand scheme of things. It's good. It has a downside insofar as it's much more contagious than Delta, but on the good side, it does appear to be a milder disease, particularly for those who are vaccinated. I remain concerned about the older age group. Most of the cases we have seen have been in older people. So it is critical that the older age group get that 3rd dose of vaccine. The vaccination clinic started to reopen yesterday. We administered 888 doses of vaccine yesterday. Over 70% of those were 3rd doses, which is good to see, and around 10% are 1st doses. As at the 27th of December, the vaccination coverage is 90.49% of the 16 plus population having at least 1 dose and 86.14% having 2 doses. I encourage anyone over the age of 12 years to come forward and get vaccinated, and also remind you that it's now possible to book your children aged 5 to 11 years from the 10th of January in to get vaccinated at a Queensland Health Clinic, GP or pharmacy. And finally, just going back to the rat testing, just to reiterate, I advised the Premier that rapid antigen testing was an appropriate form of testing in the current environment for interstate travellers from hotspots like New South Wales, Victoria, travelling to Queensland, and so that will come into force from the 1st of January, this Saturday. Thank you very much.
Doctor, what problems do you foresee with the rat testing in terms of uniformity of quality as judged by the TGA and availability? Do you see anything on the horizon that could create a problem there?
Well, the rapid antigen tests will be supplied from within the state. They will be provided from within the states from which the patients arrive. We will rely on those which have been approved and which are available in those states.
The stock levels are pretty good.
We are led to believe they are in New South Wales. There is no doubt that rapid antigen tests in Queensland at the moment are difficult to obtain. We know that in Queensland. We are led to believe they are available in New South Wales.
When are we expected to hit the 90% double dose?
Sometime in January. We don't have a specific date yet. And as you know, once we reach that 90% dose rate, then we'll stop. Then these requirements are eliminated altogether.
Can you explain the process around the rat testing? How does it work? Do it just show it similar to what the PCR test was?
So you will perform the rat test within the 72 hours of your time of travel, preferably on the day within 24 hours of travelling, and then you will perform a declaration online using the same declaration process as we've had until now, that you have done that rat test. Once you've done that, if you perform the rat test and perform the declaration and present it at the border, then you'll be able to enter Queensland.
So it's really an honesty system, isn't it?
It is. I will might refer that question specifically to the Commissioner, who I'd like to speak on this subject. But it is an honesty system. But it is to make a false declaration is a criminal offence.
The New South Wales government is considering slashing the isolation time down to 5 days, given Omicron appears to be less severe. What have you advised the Premier about?
We are meeting on a regular basis about this, including with the AHPPC. We are regularly changing our guidelines. So on that specific issue, we have not made a specific recommendation, but nationally we have been communicating nationally every day or several times a day with my counterparts across the country.
Queensland's considering it as well, is it fair to say? We're considering it?
We are looking at all options.
Have you stopped putting exposure signs out as well? Is that coming to an end?
My understanding from the public health people is that exposure sites are still being published, but we are definitely pulling back on the amount of contact tracing that we are doing. We made significant changes to our contact tracing policy on Christmas Eve, and this should have had some positive impact on the hospitality sector. I had hoped. I saw some media this morning suggesting there was still some problems with staff in the hospitality sector. Certainly we made changes to some of our recommendations on Christmas Eve, and we're looking into that further today. I spoke with our public health officers this morning at 7 a.m. to make sure that these changes had been effectively communicated.
Why are you pulling back though? Can you explain that reasoning, and what classifies as a high risk setting that the contact tracers will be looking at? How do you call it?
So as this pandemic develops and advances, it has always been the intention to slowly carefully pull back all of our public health measures. We have to do it in a controlled manner. It's not a matter of removing all measures at once, but we're doing it in a controlled way. And every day we look at all of these measures and we pull back slowly to ensure that it occurs in a safe manner. We know that there are large numbers of people in quarantine, and we cannot afford to allow the functioning of the state to seize up. We will not allow that to happen. And that is why we are looking at these measures on a daily basis.
Is there a possibility that rapid antigen tests will be used for contacts in the coming weeks?
Almost certainly will be the use of rapid antigen tests will be more widely used. The value of rapid antigen tests is, as I'm sure most Australians are now aware, is in the context of wide-scale transmission of the virus. They are not as sensitive as PCR, so they can miss a proportion of positive cases. But in the context of wide-scale transmission, that's where they start to become useful. And we're entering that phase now.
A lot of people are reporting they're having trouble finding a rapid antigen test in Sydney, Adelaide. What about people who can't get their hands on them?
They are required to perform a rapid antigen test before they come to Queensland. That's what I can say.
Given your forecast expectations around just how widespread Omicron will become, what would you say, what advice would you give to those with double vaccination in terms of whether they're better off getting Omicron and developing the antibody response naturally, as it were, or getting the booster shot, or both?
Oh no, I would be getting the booster. I've had my booster dose, so I would definitely be getting the booster dose if you're entitled to it. So and as we know from the 4th of January, then the day is brought forward to the timing is brought forward to 4 months.
Is that a wives' tale then? If you get Omicron, you're immune. What would you say to people who've had it?
That sounds like the old stories of chickenpox parties. That's not.
Encourage people not to think.
I mean, no. I mean, encourage people to get the third dose.
Can you just clarify a bit more detail as to what contact tracing efforts now being made? What environments will you be contacting? What environments won't you be contacting?
I'd rather not go into specific details of what we're doing because it's complex. And there's also today we're just reviewing a further document that is about to be issued to the public health officers. So generally, in broad terms, we are pulling back to isolating those who are sick and their immediate household contacts. That is the main group that we are contacting. So the broader contact tracing is gradually being pulled back.
So why should people check in then at the moment if they're not getting contacted?
They can still become aware that there are other people in the environment where they have been positive. But we are pulling back and we are focusing more on those who are infected and their immediate household contacts.
So just clarify flow-on effect a bit. So you're looking less at businesses, I guess, like cafes and restaurants. Is that what you're saying? Or?
So we are doing less direct contact tracing in businesses like restaurants and cafes. That is correct.
And why is that?
Because we are progressive. We are moving forward with the pandemic. We cannot afford to quarantine the entire population of Queensland. We know that. And this pandemic is progressing. It has always been expected to progress. And so far, we have not seen large numbers of people in intensive care. But we will. Go. The sick ones you're talking about. I think it's a mix. I think we've had a couple of each. But my sense is, and this is a sense, and I think it's backed up by the literature, that the Delta is looking much more like the conventional COVID-19 that I've seen in the overseas epidemics, because I've worked overseas during the epidemics, and the descriptions of what we're seeing from the hospital of the Delta strains looks a lot more like what I saw overseas. Then Omicron, look, it can cause the same disease, but they seem less severe. We've seen quite a lot of a bit of diarrhea with it, dehydration with it, but still respiratory disease as well. So we still see that pattern with the Omicron.
Doctor, there's a lot of discussion in the United States at the moment about mandating the booster shot, employers mandating.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to come to that here? Is that the direction, given the strong advice of people like yourself? Do you think that's
It's
what
not
governments will
something
adopt?
that it's being discussed at this moment.
Do you think that's on its way, that debate?
I no doubt the debate will occur. It may occur at some stage. It's not on the discussion.
So those people who've been double vaccinated, obviously not anti-vax, but have questions about the booster shot. What's the difference in the body's response when it identifies the Omicron virus in terms of being able to fight it in the future, and in the response to the booster shot?
We know that when you get that third dose, you get a very dramatic rise in your antibody response. It's not just a little rise; it's a big rise, and that's why we think it's so particularly effective. So that's why. I mean, I don't know anybody who's entitled to it that hasn't been as keen as mustard to get that third dose.
Dr. Gerard, just to clarify, when you were speaking before about we're considering slashing the isolation time from 7 to 5 days, was that AHPPC is discussing that?
all of these things, I'm not going to get specific about which particular issues are being discussed at the moment. I don't want to get that specific, but all of these issues are on the table. You might have seen, for example, the Centers for Disease Control in the United States just changed a lot of its criteria just yesterday. This is happening around the world, that all jurisdictions around the world are making changes to their isolation and quarantine requirements as we learn more about the virus.
On the contact tracing advice, on the contact,
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'll just start off with giving you some figures and we'll go from there. So as of 5 o'clock this morning, 471,866 GB applications were made, and remember this is from the hotspot areas, so it's not including WA, South Australia, Tasmania and T, it's just Victoria, New South Wales and ACT. Some other statistics, just get them right for you. Bear with me guys, I just want to make sure I get the right ones. Okay. 31,998 vehicles intercepted on our borders. 120 of those were turned around. 410 heavy vehicles, 3 of those were turned around after intercepts. Yesterday, across airports across Queensland, 204 flights from hotspot areas, some 11,250 passengers, and we expect those numbers to continue. 7 were refused entry, and this really comes down to people not doing the right thing in terms of coming into Queensland. 113 were put into quarantine, and as we've spoken before, some people get on the flight honestly believing they'll get their result back in time, and if they don't, we make sure they're in quarantine until their result does come back. I want to touch on one other thing, is compliance in terms of mask wearing has been exceptionally good in some areas, but not so good in other areas. Can I please ask that everyone continues to wear masks where it's required of them? We handed out 143 yesterday. We will continue to hand them out. We'll always take a very educated approach to this, but at the end of the day, if you're doing the wrong thing, you will be issued with an infringement notice. Any questions before I go back?
Yeah, Commissioner,
yes.
It seems like it's an honesty system for this rapid antigen test.
It's definitely a declaration. A declaration means that you are telling the truth. If you make a false declaration, obviously you will be issued with an infringement notice. If you are intercepted at the airport, questions will be, when did you have the test? Where was it? At what time? Etc. So I ask everyone to abide by the requirements of the declaration, and if they're found to be obviously making a false declaration, they will be heavily fined. The fines are over $1,400.
Commissioner, given the speed...
Is it going to be hard to prove though that people are lying about the declaration?
Not necessarily. It's we've had many people already obviously given infringement notice for false declaration. Once those questions start happening, people have to come up with some evidence as to when they've actually done that, where they've done it, etc.
Commissioner, this will all be a moot point within days, won't it, given the speed with which Queensland's approaching that 90% double vaccination level when no test will be required. I mean, when do you seriously expect? Mid-January has always been touted. Are you expecting this just to last a few days anyway for the rapid antigen?
I think we're all hoping it's lasting for a few days. I think we're all looking forward to the 90%, but it is still incredibly important. You know, the day that we opened up on the 13th of December was quite incredible. The second those relaxed restrictions came in, COVID was immediately into the state. So these restrictions, until we get to 90%, are still incredibly important. And they may be a week or 2 or 3 or 4, but definitely we're heavily committed to this in ensuring that, we reduce the spread of it in Queensland.
Is there any advantage for people from the hotspot states if they've had the booster shot, or still got to play by the same rules?
I think it's important that we play by the advice from the CHO. I've had the booster, the Moderna, a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of my staff have.
So that doesn't give anybody special privileges?
Certainly doesn't give it special privileges. We expect everyone to be telling the truth. Any false declaration will be dealt with, obviously, heavy infringement notices.
How many fines have been issued now for non-mask wearing excluded to before?
I'll get you the totality. There was one overnight. And the reason why I talk about masks is There are people who are going into shopping centres, restaurants, and when they've been asked to put a mask on, have been quite aggressive and refused to, and obviously police get called to those, and we will take action.
Have any businesses been fined for not following the vaccine mandates? People entering their business?
Certainly, there's a business just in the last few days in Toowoomba. The owner was given a notice to appear to go to court for that very, very reason, blatantly disregarding the requirements of the direction. I've been on the Gold Coast and I went through three separate restaurants, and every one of them asked me for my check-in as well as my double vaccination. To those restaurants, I say a sincere thank you. We continue with our compliance checks. We continue to any calls of service in relation to non-compliance. But all in all, most Queenslanders, whether it be mask wearing, whether it be restaurants in terms of compliance, have just been absolutely tremendous.
Can I ask one more to the child, if that's okay? Sorry to given some of the failures in rolling out the vaccine in remote Indigenous communities, for example, only weeks before the border opened, did health workers start going door to door with the vaccine in some communities? How does the health department plan to, fix some of those issues and vaccinate children 5 to 11, be a bit more proactive?
Well, we're actively working with those communities every day. Queensland Health is actively out there working with those communities to roll out this vaccination program in all the First Nations communities across Queensland.
Given some of those vaccination rates are still trailing in those communities compared with the state average and the national average, do you think something different needs to be done when rolling out the vaccine to children?
I think it's the communities, as always, need to lead this process. We help the communities as Queensland Health, and we give them the resources that are required, but the communities do need to lead it, and that is what is happening.
What else do we know about this case on Thursday?
What do we know?
Yeah.
Just not a lot. The information we have, it only came in overnight. The person has been on Thursday Island since the 23rd or 24th of December. We do not believe they acquired the virus on Thursday Island. They'd recently travelled to Sydney, so that's the most likely source. There's plenty of capacity for testing and vaccination on Thursday Island, so we're not concerned about that. So that's all the information that I have about the patient.
People who are testing positive are getting a text message saying you'll be contacted. How long is it taking for them to be contacted? We're hearing reports of several days.
I don't have that specific information, but I can get that information for you.
Minister, can I ask you a couple of questions?
And then road safety.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you can come from interstate, but anyone coming in from overseas still has to quarantine for 14 days. I mean, COVID's already here, isn't it?
Yes. Well, this is all about, as you've heard from the Commissioner and the Chief Health Officer, about ensuring that we have a manageable process around COVID being in the community. That's why we've had the tests process to date. That's why we've moved to the rapid antigen test. That's why we've got the roadmap about different milestones, and when we hit 90%, other things will happen. But it is all about making sure we have a manageable process around COVID-19 in the community.
With rapid antigen tests, what is the government doing to try and make sure we start getting a stockpile here to start manufacturing them here?
Yeah, so of course there's a couple of things that are happening. The Queensland government's backed manufacturers, and we were the government that backed one of the largest manufacturers of these rapid antigen tests in the world. They're based here in Queensland. But there are federal government processes around these things. So I encourage the federal government to get out there, to work with these manufacturers, to make sure that they're supporting the manufacturers to get the necessary approvals, because once those approvals are in place, of course, the supply will increase.
Minister, Victoria's just announced that 34 million rat test kits will be handed out for free. It's already been arranged. Is Queensland that far down the track?
Oh, look, that sounds like it's breaking news. Well done, Sky News, breaking the news.
No, it's just been announced that in Victoria we've got news that are arriving now. Yeah.
Look, of course, we'll continue to look at all options available, but at the moment we've got our roadmap. We've got our roadmap about when testing's required, the type of test that's required. Of course, we'll continue to look at all other options to keep the community safe.
That Antiotech Queensland company.
Sorry, what was that?
Antiotech rapid test, that Queensland-based company. Why is it waiting?
It's one of a number, yeah.
Why is it? Will the government help bankroll that test? Why is it waiting though for months on approval? And do you have a message from the TGA?
Yeah, well, the best people to be asking those questions around approval to are the federal government, the TGA. Of course, we support local manufacturing. We have done so. Our record is very clear on that. So I encourage the federal government to get the Therapeutic Goods Administration to work with those manufacturers to ensure that they're supporting them to get the necessary approvals.
Minister, the Health Minister yesterday said it should be up to the Commonwealth to source and pay for these rapid antigen tests. Victoria appears to be going it alone. Do you think Queensland needs to just source and pay for their own as well?
Let's just take one thing at a time, hey? We've got great resourcing here in Queensland from the testings regime that we've got. Queensland Health has sufficient and significant capacity. They did 35,000 tests yesterday with those PCR tests. So let's just take one step at a time. We'll obviously look at other options as the pandemic rolls out. Victoria's in a different situation to Queensland. Their vaccination rates are higher. We're getting there, but our roadmap's clear. We'll hit 90% soon, and obviously we'll continue to look at all the options that are available.
And for the past 2 years, we've seen states sort of going it alone, different health advice in different states. Now it seems that Queensland's sort of coming together with New South Wales and rolling out some of the same processes. Do you think that will continue throughout into 2022? See a bit more of a unified health response across the country?
Well, the states have been at different positions in the pandemic as well. You've had significant outbreaks in the southern states, which have obviously had significant impacts on their populations, both health-wise and also from the point of view of restrictions and the like that they've had in place in those states. But also, it's had an impact on vaccination levels. So Queensland's roadmap is clear. We've always prioritised the health of Queenslanders. We've made it clear around our roadmap. When we get to the 90%, there'll be some changes again to the restrictions. That's very clear in the roadmap, and we'll continue obviously to take the advice of the Chief Health Officer and other health experts around the best way to manage COVID-19 in the community.
And now we have Omicron sort of throughout the state. We are, I guess, more similar to New South Wales and Victoria now than we were in the past. Do you think that will make a difference?
Well, again, they've had significant outbreaks. Their vaccination rates were higher, but they were very low during an outbreak. Our rates are higher while we've got community transmission of COVID-19. So I would actually say we're in a stronger position because our vaccination levels are higher when the community transmission is in Queensland compared to those southern states which had relatively low vaccination levels and community transmission. So, Queensland's always taken this course about prioritising the health of Queenslanders. We've had it in a very measured way. We've been clear with the roadmap. We'll stay the course.
Can I get Dr. Gerard on that question?
And then road safety, okay? Right.
Sorry, just repeat the question.
So just over the past 2 years, states have sort of been doing different things. Do you think now in 2022 we'll see more of a unified health response across the states?
I do actually. I do. I'm dealing with my interstate colleagues every day, and we are working towards a more unified approach. I think as we move forward and as the virus spreads across all of Australia, it will be easier to have a unified approach. But given that we are no longer trying to completely eliminate the virus. But I do need to emphasise we are still trying to slow down the spread of the virus. Let's not underestimate the importance of that through the use of masks, etc., and social distancing to allow people to get that third dose of the vaccine and also to minimise the number of people that will require admission to hospital over the next few weeks. And there may well be things that we may start suggesting businesses during January think about arrangements for working at home if it's easy and possible. Not mandates, but that's the sort of thing that we probably do need to think about in the coming weeks as we see numbers get larger and larger, which they will.
Would you ever consider rapid antigen for close contacts rather than having to go get PCR?
All of those things are on the table, definitely.
Do you think we're moving towards a time when if you're a close contact and you can be vaccinated, you don't have to isolate at all?
Are we moving towards a time where you are a close contact and fully vaccinated?
Can you just not isolate at all?
It's too hypothetical.
So
We're not there yet. Not there yet.
Very good. Road safety? I'll go first, okay.
You are the guys getting the gift today. Good go for the questions for my birthday. Very good. Okay, let's talk about something very serious as well. And I want to talk firstly about the principle of citizenship, and citizenship is, putting others first, ensuring that you have a consideration of others in your community, and we've seen that with vaccination. It's not only for yourself and your own health, but by getting vaccinated, you also have an impact on your community, on your family. You're able to help promote health and safety in your community. And it's the same concept with road users. When you get behind the wheel of a car, road safety starts with you, it is about your safety, but it is also about the safety of others in the car and other road users. That principle of citizenship, thinking about others. So as we head towards New Year's Eve, I want everyone to think about New Year's resolutions, and I want them to think about prioritising road safety. Police have been out and about over the Christmas period, and Queenslanders have been doing an outstanding job. In fact, I've just been told that the last fatality we had on our roads was the 20th of December, over a week ago. Touch wood, let's hope we don't see another fatality anytime soon. Queenslanders, road safety starts with you. I need you to be really careful on our roads. Think about yourself, think about your family and friends, think about other road users. Police will be out and about. Over Christmas, I visited family from the Sunshine Coast out to Toowoomba, and I saw police everywhere. Police will continue to have a high visibility presence on our road over the holiday period, but think about also the police you can't see, those police who conduct COVID road work, those other strategies that police have in place to enhance road safety. It's really important that people consider road safety first and foremost when they get in a car. It's your responsibility. Do the right thing. Ensure that this New Year's is a safe one for you, your family and other road users. I'll now invite AC Marcus to say a few words.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everybody. Thank you once again for your continuing interest in road safety. My name is Ben Marcus. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Road Policing Regional Support in Queensland. As the Min has said, since we last spoke to you 2 days ago, we've had no fatalities in Queensland, and for this time of year, that's absolutely outstanding. And there's a few people I'd like to thank for that. The first one is you guys in the media. You continue to push the messages that we ask you to push, and sometimes independently of us, and that is sincerely appreciated. I'd like to thank all of the people who've done the right thing on our roads, and I'll run through the figures shortly that will bring this into fairly stark relief. I'd also like to thank the people that have convinced others or cajoled others into doing the right thing when they didn't want to. And I'll also talk to you shortly about the three big issues we've got for road safety coming up and what we'd like you to do for that. Also like to thank the people that purchased a road safety Christmas gift this year, a hands-free kit for a car or a cradle, because as we all know we have mobile phone and seatbelt cameras in Queensland, and distracted driving is one of the leading causes of serious crashes. And finally, I'd like to thank everybody in the health community. They've got a lot on their plate at the moment, but they continue to be involved in recoveries of people involved in serious crashes. And while I said we've had no fatal crashes in the last 2 days, we've had 16 serious injury crashes, and this does put a burden on the health system. In the last 48 hours, we've picked up 42 drink or drug drivers in Queensland. And that mightn't seem like a lot, but since we've started Operation Mistletoe, which is on the 10th of December, we've done 63,500 tests for alcohol or drugs. 818 Queenslanders went over the limit for alcohol, 384 for drugs. That is still way too high. And this is something that we have to get our head around. There is absolutely no need for you to drive a motor vehicle if you've been consuming alcohol or drugs. There's three issues coming up for us at the moment. The first one is New Year's Eve, the second one is people coming home from their holidays, and the third one is a significant adverse weather event. I'll talk you through New Year's Eve. First of all, it will be different to a lot of other New Year's Eves, and you're going to have to be prepared to change your plans at the last minute, because we know we have some serious weather coming in. Please do not expect that there will be enough taxis or ride shares to get you home. Part of your planning for New Year's Eve is how am I going to get there and how am I going to get home. The second issue is people have gone away for holidays. We know that tourism is going very well in Queensland at the moment. Everyone who left their home has to return to their destination. Queensland is a very large and complex geography. People are going to travel long distances, and a lot of them are going to want to do it in one hit. There's no need to. Make the journey part of the holiday. Pull up at a roadside stop somewhere, have a cup of coffee, talk to the locals, take some photos, spend some money in a local community, break the trip up. And the third thing that we need to talk about is the rain that is coming. Now, as you all know, we lost 4 lives to drowning in a 3-week period not that long ago. 2 in the country, 2 in the city, 1 of them in Aspley. It can happen. What we have at the moment is sodden watercourses. The rivers are full, the creeks are full, the gullies are full. Any rain that we get at the moment is going to run and it's going to flood. So the Bureau of Meteorology in Queensland employs in Australia employs some of the most talented hydrologists on the planet. They've worked all of this out. They know what will flood, when it will flood, and how badly it will. 2 golden rules. You do not enter floodwaters. You do not cross flooded roads. That's the first one. The second one is this. Flash flooding, by its very description, it floods quickly and it recedes quickly. You can simply wait it out. If you can't wait it out, you can always find another way. The 4 people who were drowned in Queensland, 2 were men, 2 were women. None of them were doing anything reckless other than entering floodwaters. Please do not do it. We'd be very happy to take any questions.
What extra preparations have been made against this severe weather?
So we have road safety operations at the moment from the Cape down to Coolangatta. We are watching the bomb sites very closely as the rain event unfolds. We have our district disaster coordination centres will all be activated if required. From a road safety perspective, all we ask you to do is if you don't have to travel, don't travel. Just stay put.
You have that extra level of concern, though people are trying to think about heading out for New Year's celebrations, I guess, and, really wanting to make those events and not cancel it.
Yeah, so my assessment of the weather on New Year's Eve will not be so much from flooding, it will be from people getting rained on and wanting to head home at a different time to what they planned, and that's all we're saying is please factor in, you have to get to whatever event you're going to and you have to get home again. Please do not rely upon traditional public transport, taxis or ride shares. If everyone tries to do everything at the same time, which we appear to be good at in Queensland at the moment, it's going to overwhelm the system. You're not going to get home. Do not be tempted to drive.
This year's road toll is still higher than last year's, and it's far higher than 2019.
Yep.
What do you put that increase in?
Yeah, so it's not quite true. This year's road toll at 272 is 4 fewer than this time last year, but I forgive you for that because we've only just moved into that in the last few days. We are still around 10% above the 5-year average. The last 2 years in Queensland have been particularly difficult for us. One of the things that we know for sure is that there are changed patterns on how we use our roads. Fewer people using public transport. One of the big ones for us is people have discretionary income that they used to spend on overseas holidays. Now they're buying caravans or camper vans, so they're travelling. They're buying a jet ski, they have to get to the water. The big one for us in Queensland is they will buy a motorcycle, either for the first time or they're returning to motorcycle riding after a significant hiatus. Our motorcycle crashes are 25% higher than the 5-year average, and that's the big issue for us in Queensland.
So COVID is almost having a flow-on effect on our road tolls.
It is, yes, it is. It changes how we use roads. One of the interesting things, we have fewer pedestrian fatalities this year. It's one of the lowest for many years. But motorcycles are where we are seeing a significant increase in fatalities. We've done a whole heap of stuff this year around emailing every motorcycle rider in Queensland. We've given away free motorcycle refresher courses. We're urging people to buy loved ones who have motorbikes a good helmet or good safety gear, or to go and get another lesson. The bikes that people are riding today are about 4 times as powerful as the ones they learnt on 30 or 40 years ago. And a lot of us in the community couldn't afford the big Harley when they were a teenager, and they can now. Now is not the time to see what that new bike can do. Get some lessons, get some instruction off a proper instructor, not off some mate that's faster on a bike than you are.
Mobile phones,
They are having a significant impact. we track the major increases in road safety since the early 1970s, things like seatbelts and ABS and drink driving. I honestly believe that the mobile phone cameras will be the seatbelts of our era. I saw a study the other day that said the average Queenslander looks at their phone 80 times a day. They only need to look at it 3 or 4. We are connected to our devices, particularly younger road users. If you're getting in a vehicle, put the phone down, put it away, or put it in a cradle. Do not be tempted by it. We are catching the same people at the same times of the day in the same vehicles with the same phone. It's a habit, and it's a habit we have to break. So when you look down, something happens in front of you, you cannot respond. It's one of the most dangerous things that we can do in a vehicle.
Thank you. Commissioner, did you want to say anything?
No, look, I just wanted to say thank you to Queenslanders, so incredibly proud. You've just heard the figures, 4 less than last year. So not only to Queenslanders, but our interstate visitors as well. This is extraordinarily tremendous. However, still people aren't wearing seat belts, driving too fast, not driving to the conditions, using their mobile phones. It's all of those usual offences that obviously bring people undone. But please, New Year's Eve, 3 days away, plan ahead, and make sure that you get home to your family safely. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.